Hey folks, how you doing? I am Joe Rafanelli. I am one of the directors here, Technical Solutions at Innovatix. At Innovatix, are the experts of migrating old technology to new. I am going to have the pleasure of introducing my two key project coordinators or project managers, I really should say. I have Haider on my right, and I have Nelly in the middle of the screen there. We um, we wanted to pick up from where we left off in our last call. We talked about leading successful platform migrations, and we talked about project manager best practices. And I tell you, I got my best two guys here on this call. Um, where we left off, and I think it was February 26th, if I'm not mistaken. We talked about migration goals and success. We talked about current the practical ways, of a PM migration, and then we also showed some slides on what we do particularly, for a kickoff meeting, making sure everybody is is on the same page, right from the start, making sure folks know what to do right from the start and the expectations, I guess, is what I want to say right from the start. Then we talked a lot about the project planning, the assessments and then target platform readiness. Talked a little bit about architecture and how we kind of figured that out. Lots and lots of details that we discussed. We also discussed one last thing was migration strategy. So all that came about took a little while. So we said, listen, why don't we just cut it there and then pick up where we left off, which is in today's meeting. Today we are going to talk about we're going to continue the conversation, and it's going to finalize the whole process for project management best practices, and we're going to talk about project execution. We're going to talk about risk management. We're going to talk about Jira and what we use for Jira, and then we're going to talk about project closure. So I'm going to look again. This is a roundtable discussion. There are no notes. This is all about past experience. We thought this would be the best way for folks to get the best out of these sort of conversations. So Haider, I'm looking at you, and I want to give you the floor on what we do for project execution, and then Nelly and I will chime in from there. So go ahead.
Sure. So thank you, Joe. Right. Now we are in the phase of project execution. There are a few things we are essentials for the project execution, which we are giving key priorities. First up is identify and align on the roles and ownership to make sure that everybody know their roles, responsibilities, the ownership of the product, and also other aspects like engineering, platform security, and so on and so forth. This ensures accountability and for also effective communication and collaboration. The alignment is designed to actually minimize any ambiguity or strengthen coordination between the different teams working and collaborating towards the same goal of the delivery of the project. Execution frameworks is one of the key elements in this phase to make sure that we have certain rituals and delivery artifacts in place, such as weekly review meetings, the cadences in the form of sprints or Kanbans. We also are keeping very key eye on the features or artifacts like the RAID logs or any dependency tracking to make sure that we are all on track in terms of the whole program execution. Then there's a governance piece, which is to make sure that we are actually having a constant collaboration with the client and also everybody in the team to make sure that the decision-making framework is up to date and enable a timely escalation mechanism if there is a need to do that. So a well-defined governance is basically just to make sure we are ensuring predictable progress and effective management of the process. The overall, these are the foundations of a scalable or well-governed delivery model. And on that note, I'm going to share one artifact with you all in terms which will provide us an update on the exact execution of the system and one of the key elements of that. So please let me know if my screen is coming through.
We do see it. Make it a little bigger, please.
So this is what. Sure.
I think we're okay. Go ahead. That's fine.
So this is one of the key artifacts which we maintain while we're in the execution phase. The aspect of it, as we discussed very briefly in our last discussion, was the sequencing. So you can see that from this particular document, we have a very well defined and approved sequence of the different features which are being developed. On the first column number B, there are features listed which are to be migrated in the respected milestone. And on column number G, the next column, there is a number associated against each and every feature which is to be migrated. So number 1 here is representing the order in which they are going to be implemented or migrated. One is that these are in line to be covered first, and then moving on, you can see from line number 48, we have number 2, which is done when all of number 1 are created and signed off, and so on and so forth. There are also other elements in this spreadsheet which are quite important for the project in terms of their statuses, their status of the wireframes, the features details, and so on and so forth. So this is one of just to give you the highlight of an execution model, an execution framework, which is very heavy emphasis on the sequencing of the project execution.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense to me. What comes to mind is I know when we put together, sort of the statement of work, we do get some details, right? Enough to actually, be able to start the project. But once you dive in and you really show the details, right, which is what you're showing us now, I know we go through a lot of steps, and I know we even get a lot of system demos even after that to better understand each and every one of these screens, if you will, and then ask questions, and then sort of develop from there. So yeah, lots of detail. um Nelly, go ahead. I see you nodding your head. Go ahead. I know you want to say
Yes,
something.
yes. So I want to add some more points
Yeah.
on top of other what he explained. So basically, in a migration projects or any project, so the major things during the execution comes in like as Joe started talking about the demos, right? So basically, the team is working on that. When we define the sequence of the modules, what we are going to develop on the individual milestone wise, what we'll do is we'll go with the client in a weekly call and ask them, or sometimes at the beginning of the project we'll have more calls and ask the client to provide a detailed demo of the individual functionality. So that is basically to understand how the end user is using the application and what is their business requirement of that. And sometimes, as the project is used for more than 10, 12 years back or 15 years, they might want something new or additional things in the new system. So they might give their feedback on how the system works and what are their pain points, what they are facing in the application, and then they'll share it with us. And while we were developing on the application, we can address the pain points, and we are addressing the cover up all the functionality of that. And when we develop it, we are giving a regular demo to the client back. So how the new system will behave and how the new system will work based on the functionality wise, all those things. So that will give a better clarity for the client rather than waiting for the completion of the project or completion of the milestone. They'll have a feel of how the new system is keep on building up in a weekly basis or in a regular basis, so that they can have an interactive session like the application is building on based on their requirement, and it is matching up their business end users, all those aspects which is getting covered up on the items. So the execution should be properly monitored and tracked down with the client so that the delivery will follow as per the expectation of the client. So there will not be any miscommunication or any gap in the acceptance of the project of the deliveries.
Yeah, you bring up some great points there, Nelly. The one that stood out to me is when you're going through the project and very detailed, like Hader is showing us here, and then you get a lot of folks. Well, if it did this, it'd be great. If it did that, it would be great. And a lot of times that may turn into like a change request, and then it goes down a little bit of a different path. But it's one of these things where um, you're not just migrating, because you're always going to find other things that you're going to want, because like Nelly said, it could be really a 20-year-old application, right? And maybe at that point, until you dive into the details, you don't know what you don't know until you say, "Oh," you really look at it and say, "Listen, well, I don't really want it like this. I want it like that." And we get that kind of all the time, and that's where we also make some suggestions and try and help the clients along to make it where they actually what they're looking at is actually what they want for the future, not just really a like to like. There's more to it than just that. So great. Okay, so that's project execution. I wanted to move on to our next topic. I want to talk a little bit about our risk management and I guess, how we manage that. So maybe we'll start again off with Haider, and then we'll continue the conversation from there. So go ahead, Haider.
Sure. So risk management or risk mitigation is one of the key elements in this particular next phase, which is usually being run in the parallel of the entire project stream, but it's quite crucial at this particular stage when the execution phase is done and we're looking for identifying any red flags or any issues. So it's essential to actually define or implement any appropriate strategy for deployment. There could be many cases, such as the most commonly used in the market are by like blue-green system or the parallel run-ins. So, but every deployment is to be backed up by a proper rollback system, just to make sure that all the production releases are low risk production deployments, and also will be supported by well defined and rollback procedures to make sure that there is rapid recovery in form of anything which goes sideways. So that's the thing. One of the key elements in terms of risk management, we have to be very much prepared for any operational transaction throughout the development, or any on-call support to make sure that every risk is being monitored, is accounted for, and the team is ready to be dealing with that in any capacity or the priorities or severity which the project entails. I'm going to share my screen to demonstrate one of the uh, ways through which we do the risk management, the risk matrix, if you may. So if you look into the chart on the my left corner before diving into the other details on the right, this is the particular risk matrix. Every risk or every potential risk which we currently identify is assigned a risk rating or a risk score. And based on that risk score, they are categorized into different categories of like low, medium, high, urgent risk, or something which is critical. And the mitigation mechanism or the addressing mechanism stems from the category in which the risk lies in. So if the risk lies in the low category, then this is not something for which you have to leave your current work and jump onto it immediately. But on the other end, if the risk falls into any category of red, as in urgent, or purple as in critical, that needs to be the priority number one for the team to address before they continue to work on what they are working on.
Nelly, I'll let you jump in there because I know you had a lot to say about this. Go ahead. I'll
Right.
go after you. Go ahead.
Yes. So when we define the risk matrix, we have various stages while we defining. So when the project starts, there will be something related to the infrastructure and the configuration of the application, and how the team is forming up, and who is the point of contact, and what is the responsibility to identify the business users, all those things. So when the project goes on building up, so we define we the risk matrix or the risk items will be keep on adding up, or it will get mitigated based on the things. So what we usually do is, before we foresee for any during the development time, we will be always looking for the point of contact from the client side who can explain us the business of the application. And if there is the development is going on, if the team requires some answers to be clarified, then they will be providing the informations. And when we are approaching the closure of or approaching the closure of the milestone, so we define like that the client has to provide of an environment for the UAT. So we'll talk about setting up the environment and whether all the informations are available, so that the testing has to be started on time properly, and we'll work towards that. So every time the risk is not a constant one, because risk is, it can be in internal factors or based on the external factors as well. So it will keep on updating, and we'll define the metrics, and then the priority of the risk will be changing based on the situations.
Yes, absolutely. So we've been part of many projects, and that's a slide we always review. You know, when we're doing the senior management review meetings or stakeholder meetings, right? We've had stuff where, and Nelly mentioned it. You have the environment that sometimes takes a while for clients to build up, and sure, we can absorb some of that time. But what happens if it goes on too long? We certainly don't want it to impact the overall time schedule, because that's where, you know, the colors start getting from yellow to red. You know what I mean? So, and it's closely monitored, as Nelly had said. And again, I know he's nodding because we just lived through this, and it could be a little stressful, but it's just a matter of the care that you take when doing a migration. You know, this is one of the key things, you know, that we do. So if any folks that are listening to this, you're not going to do your own migration, let's just say, just be aware of some of the risk factors that may come up. All right. Okay. So that's risk management. Thanks, gentlemen. So we got a couple more to get through. I want to talk about testing and what we do for testing. Who wants to start? Nelly, you want to start talking about? It's up to you guys.
Yeah.
Nelly will start. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yes. So the testing is very much important in migration projects. So basically, as the users are using the old system and coming to the new system, so initially what we'll do is, in the planning stage, as we mentioned, we'll define on the test plan. So the QA will be providing the test plan to the client, and then they'll start creating the test cases. So every module, whenever the QA has to understand the application, and they'll write the test cases, and we'll collect the test cases from the client as well, from the business users. So business users will share their test cases if they are maintaining it out, and we'll consolidate it to a single test case document or a repository. And then whatever we prepared it out, we'll confirm with the client whether we covered up all the scenarios. Because as a technology company, we are good in the technology, but we are doing for the migrations for a different clients, different sector, different domains. So we may not be expert on the domain side. So we always look for the business point of contact who is responsible in the client side to understand the business. And once the project gets started, within a couple of months, we'll become the domain experts as well. So we'll not put everything to client. We take the ownership. We try to understand the application from the technology point of view and from the domain point of view. So we have the business analyst and the QA who will be working closely with the client team and collect the requirement document as well as the test cases, and we'll review with them. And when the development comes in and when the development is happening, so we'll be providing the some of the completed modules we'll give to the internal testing. So our QA will verify all the functionalities and the businesses are getting covered up based on executing the test cases. And then our QA or our BA as well, to verify whether we are not missing out any functionality or any business on the migrated application. So we will work towards that and try to achieve that. The quality is important for us. As we are a ISO certified company, the quality is very much important for us. So we have a certain process, we are following it up, and we define the QA will verify all the test cases, whether it is passed or failed. And if it is failed, the developer has to fix them up and then testing it out. And once everything is through and the module is ready for release, then QA provides sign off. Until the QA provides a sign off, we will not release the bill to the client. So we are following a strict practices for following the ISO standard.
We are ISO 9001 certified, was what Nelly is referring to.
Yes.
That's a standard we have to uphold. We get audited once a year, and we audit ourselves 3 times a year. And we just got our certification about a year ago. We're up for another surveillance audit. I think it's mid-April. Anyway, Haider, I want you to give a couple comments on testing, and then I'll have my comments, and we'll go to the last topic. Go ahead.
Sure. So Nelle articulated it quite well. Since we are
agree.
ISO 9000 certified company, so the testing or the quality is ultimately the parameter of the success of the project. It boils down to that fact that how the project is in terms of quality wise determines how well you have delivered. So implementation or establishment of the quality gates throughout the different phases of the project is quite essential across the complete delivery pipeline. And this may include many different types of testing covered in that, like automated testing of performance, regression testing, any data integrity checks, just to name a few. So this framework is just to make sure that we are release ready and have the product stability and consistent quality standards are being adhered to throughout the development cycle.
Very well said. To close out this topic, what I typically tell our clients is, and Nelly actually touched on it. So we'll know the applications for as much as we learn, right? But when we have standard test cases that we'll run, there's a lot of we have a template that has a bunch of test cases on it. But what we really try to get is some test cases from clients because they know the application pretty much like the back of their hand. Typically, they're the subject matter experts, right? So per release, we'll have a lot of test cases. But if clients can also give us their test cases that we will help write up, by the way, and then we use those set of test cases to run on our side, and then those same test cases are run on the client side, we'll have no problems. We'll know exactly where we stand. It's just when you get to certain test cases that we weren't really aware of, that's where sometimes you run into a little bit more bugs than you were expecting. So we try and get that done as well with clients. Okay. So again, we do spend a lot of time on testing. We can probably go another hour talking about this topic, but I think you guys did a great job summarizing it. Okay. So let's talk about our last topic. It's called closure. So project closure and acceptance. Let's start with Nelly again, and then we'll get the conversation going from there. Go ahead, Nelly.
Mhm. So during the closure, so basically there will be a case for once the testing is there and the delivery is there. So we define the process of the definition of done. In the beginning itself, we define like what is done from the customer's point of view. So the client will be verifying all the functionalities, whatever we delivered, and how the application works. And as we mentioned about, as Heather mentioned about the regression as well as the load testing and the performance. So the client will be verifying all those things because they are coming from the legacy platform, and as the new system is the current standard, the web standard, or the current technology. So the client is always looking for the completed application is working in a high secured environment, and it is acceptable from their security point of view as well. So they will verify all the definition of done and ensure that everything is completed and working fine. So we provide a complete report of our total test case results and the regression results and the performance, the load testing as well. So we provide everything to the client, and client will do everything at their end and come for the conclusion like, okay, we are done. And as a closure process, what we'll do is we'll prepare a lessons learned document which will be used for ourselves for future projects. So we might come across different learnings in the projects with the execution with the client, and what are the areas we have to improve. All those things we will keep on documenting in all the phases. So that will be documented in our end, and we will be circulating to all our team members so that when the next project starts, this will become our lessons learned, and we'll follow through whatever the mistakes or whatever the items which we want to maintain in the future projects. So that was the main thing which we are doing in the closure plan.
Makes perfect sense to me, Haider. Last words on that?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of at the vendor closure, when the customer has verified everything and everything is passing and is as per their requirements and need, project is clearly closing. One of the apart from what Nelly very clearly identified, we are also provided them with a structured on-call support models with clearly defined SLAs or SLIs for any incident management, and additionally we implement the monitoring or any governance practice to ensure the stability, any efficiency of the system going forward, and the operations being carried out in terms of the support. So this basically ensures us to set up the foundation of a good long-term operations with a particular project or a client to make sure that we are working with the standards as we have been talking about.
Thanks, gentlemen. Makes perfect sense. I'm going to close out this particular topic. I just want to say one thing. So we as an organization, we offer typically a 1 month warranty post UAT sign off. That includes anything that would have come up, during, once Stephen signed off, we're still there to make sure, everything is copacetic, if you will, to make sure it's the work. Even after you signed off, we're gonna, we want to make sure the client is perfectly satisfied. We want to give that time, even after clients sign off. It's the right thing to do, and it's something that we do for, to build on the relationship, and maybe to do other projects. And like I said before, it is the right thing to do. So that's something the clients really do expect, and like that we do for them. Okay, so that concludes the full best practices from an Innovatix perspective. I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Nelly, and I want to thank Haider for joining. You'll see my contact information. If there's any questions, you can certainly reach out as you see there on the list there that you're looking at. And until next time, thanks everybody. Have a great day. Okay, take care.
Thank
All right, bye bye now.